So the first step, this is the most important step here with this goal, is to lift weights. The reason why you want to lift weights or do strength training is because that is the most effective, loudest muscle building type signal that you can send your body. If you do not lift weights and you attempt to build muscle and burn body fat, it's not going to happen. You may burn some body fat, but you ain't going to build muscle. Muscle does not appear on your body without a stimulus, without a reason for it, because it is expensive tissue, meaning it costs your body nutrients to build and then maintain muscle. And without a good reason, your body will never add muscle to your body. And what I mean by a good reason is either a strong outside signal or a hormonal signal or some kind of a signal that says we want extra muscle. Otherwise, it ain't going to happen. So you have to, if this is your goal, if you don't lift weights, it ain't going to happen. No other form of exercise will allow you, and there's more steps, but will allow you to build muscle and burn body fat like lifting weights will. Absolutely has to happen.
Well, and then, okay, along those lines, your second point would be the type of lifting you do, I think is really important too,
Yes.
because a lot of times, especially people that are wanting to reduce body fat, they get caught up in the calorie burn type of training and get focused more on this like circuit-based, high heart rate, constantly moving, constantly sweating. And for what we're trying to accomplish here, I would say that's some of the worst ways you could potentially train, right?
Yep.
Yeah, no, you got to focus on the loudest possible signal for muscle building exclusively. And there's a couple of those lifts, those compound lifts that really provide, that that kind of stimulus where your whole body is just, geared in that direction towards muscle building.
Yeah. So like, for example, a barbell squat in a set to set comparison to like leg extensions or leg curls or other leg exercises, it just builds more muscle. So it's a louder muscle building signal, and you want as loud as possible muscle building signal in this process. So those exercises do that, but also there's this problem. Because my calories are going to be carefully, tracked, or I'm cutting calories, I can't waste time and energy doing stuff that's not really going to serve me really well. You got to view your workout as the signaling for muscle and the diet as this is the fat burning part of it. Don't look at your workout as the fat burning. Although the workout does contribute to it, don't view it that way, because if you start to train to burn body fat, then you're going to burn too many calories or send the wrong signal, which is more of a risk actually. And then your body will actually pare muscle down. It's very common for people to go lower calorie to lose weight and simultaneously lose muscle as well as body fat. In fact, that's more common than not.
Well, this is also the reason why during this process, I did no cardio.
Yeah.
And
that's the most controversial part right now.
It is controversial, but I mean, I love that you recently brought up that study that they just did.
Yeah.
And this is an example of that. If you are in a deficit and trying to lean out and you're lifting weights and you're simultaneously also doing, hour bouts of cardio in your regimen, it is very difficult for you to lean out and also maintain the most amount of muscle that you can. And that's why. So it's like, if I know that muscle is going to help me metabolically, I know that ultimately that's the look I also want to have, is I want to have a lean, muscular look. I don't want to be all just skinny from losing lots of weight. Then it's important that I keep as much muscle as possible in this process. And one of the ways of doing that is actually managing your deficit purely through your nutrition and your training and not through cardio.
Cardio does not send a muscle building signal. Cardio sends a build endurance signal, and it also burns a lot of calories during the time that you're spent doing it. So because it doesn't send a muscle building signal and because it burns a lot of calories, the way your body adapts to it is by making you more efficient, giving you more endurance, but also making you more efficient with calorie burn. So you end up losing muscle. You end up paring muscle down. Cardio will send a competing signal with the strength training. So could you lose more weight on the scale, total weight, by doing cardio plus weights plus a deficit in calories? Yes. Will you lose more fat? No. Will you build muscle? Definitely not. So remember, the goal here is to build muscle and burn body fat at the same time. And because it's such a tricky Goldilocks zone process, you don't want to do anything that could potentially get your body to pare muscle down. You want to do everything in your power to try to get your body to build muscle while simultaneously eating in a calorie deficit to burn body fat. And if you don't, then your body will adapt metabolically by reducing muscle. And you'll end up in what usually happens, which is I lost fat and I lost some muscle.
Now, what is it, Sal, about walking that doesn't seem to do this? right?
Now you
So
can walk a lot and do this, like tons, but if you just, make sure that you're active throughout the day and taking, 8 to 10,000, 12,000 steps a day, you're not really needing to build tons of stamina and endurance. It's really just about being active and being healthy.
Right.
Cardio on a cardio machine where you're going for it and you're burning and you're sweating and you're
elevating your
getting
heart
a
rate.
workout. Yeah. Now you're looking at or running outside or something like that. Now you're looking at, now my body really wants to become efficient. Now you can do this with walking. It's just a lot harder. You have to walk miles and miles and miles a day to make that happen.
The thing about walking versus running, jogging, all that, it's more recovery focused. So it's good for overall digestion. It's good for overall circulation. And that whole circulation process, aids really well with recovery, which then helps in the process of building muscle.
Yes.
And is that because of it because it's more recovery? You manage your heart rate relatively low. Is the body not receiving this kind of loud signal of endurance or push?
Correct.
Right? Whereas I get on a piece of cardio equipment, I mean, the signals are heart rate's elevating, starting to sweat, having a hard time breathing, and so I feel like the body kind of reacts.
Yeah. That's the environment you're presenting it.
Right, more aggressively to that versus if I'm just kind of moving throughout my day, my body's not freaking out, oh God, or how long are we going to be doing this for? Or this is so difficult. Oh my God, we need so much more calories.
There's a big difference between going on a stroll, which is what we're talking about, and doing something cardiovascularly to where my body needs to improve its endurance. So I recommend you go on daily walks and strolls to where it's a walk, like you're going out with your friend and having a conversation, not like I'm out to go do a workout. Yeah. That's not what we're talking about. The workout is a strength training. That's what's going to make this
almost
happen.
Parasympathetic, right?
Yes.
You're bringing that heart rate down, controllable, and it's recovery based.
Totally. Next is, so obviously you have to be in a calorie deficit to have the fat loss happen, but you don't want to be in too much of a deficit because we need to have enough nutrients and calories to fuel muscle building. So what you want to do is you want to eat in a very small deficit. So I want to ask you, Adam, when you were tracking this for yourself, what was your goal deficit-wise?
Honestly, Sal, I actually didn't really focus so much on the deficit as much as I did hitting my targets and not overeating.
Got it.
Right? So, because I knew through walking and me training and stuff like that I was already going to create somewhat of a deficit through that naturally because of the activity that I was doing and then the signal that I'm sending my body that it needs extra calories to build muscle. So I actually wanted to kind of hover around a maintenance more than I wanted a deficit. And what would naturally happen is as I built more muscle, my metabolism would speed up, which would take care of creating a new deficit. So I actually was more focused on actually hitting my macro targets, not actually restricting. I knew that as I built muscle, as I continued to work out in the gym and move, that I would slowly create that. And then what I was actually more watching was, is my weight starting to drop too fast? Oh, I need to add calories again.
That's great.
So it was actually okay, hitting a maintenance, letting the strength training build the muscle to build the metabolism. And then once the metabolism started to build enough to where I actually started to see a dip on the scale or see my weight going down, then I would actually increase calories. So I did more of this staying at maintenance, slight surplus process of actually eating, but actually was leaning out.
Yeah, so that's great. So when I say small deficit, what I was going to say is you're aiming for a 100 calorie deficit, which is probably going to come out to maintenance.
Which is exactly what's probably happening.
Yes,
right?
yes,
Obviously, I was in somewhat of a deficit, but the psychological or the mindset.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that.
Was hit what my body needs. This is what I've figured out is my caloric maintenance. This is how much protein and fats my body needs. I'm going to stay right in that zone or close to that as I possibly can. I know that if I'm just really getting started back into weight training, that I'm going to start lifting these weights and it's going to send a signal to build muscle. And I'm going to need that potential, maybe even surplus of calories to build. And then what will eventually happen is that I add 1-2 pounds of muscle, the metabolism will speed up. And then I'll start to see the scale go down or me leaning out. And then that was always my indicator of, time to add more calories.
That's awesome. That's why the next one is to interrupt with some small calorie surpluses. Exactly what you did, right? Where I would recommend someone do 5 days or 6 days of a tiny deficit, which almost feels like maintenance, and then a day where you're now in a slight surplus. So 100 below, and then maybe 100 or 200 above for a day, and then back to below. And then, of course, reassessing, because as you continue to reassess, if you're doing this right and gaining muscle, because at the end of your journey, your metabolism was faster.
Oh, my God, yeah. No, I think when I started, I was eating around, I think about 2,800, and I don't know. I can't remember exactly, but I believe it was right around 2,800 to 3,000 calories was about where my maintenance was. And then by the end of this, I was over 4,000.
Wow.
So, and that was just, and very slowly, man. It was almost a year later.
I'm so glad you said that, because had you stayed at 2,800, it wouldn't happen.
Oh, definitely not. I definitely would not have built muscle. I mean, I might have slowly kind of leaned out, but if I did not get to a place where I was eating that many calories, I would not have also added the muscle that I had to speed the metabolism.
Was that a psychological challenge? Because I know a lot of people that go through like that surplus mode and then they interrupt it to, you know, break it up and do like a deficit and then come right back.
It was such a mind fuck, but it also was one of the coolest experiences for me for being a better coach, because I was so dialed in on where my macros needed to be that I knew I was doing the right things, right? But then there would be moments where I would get this feedback of I'd wake up in the morning and I'd look a little bloated, or I'd look like I didn't get leaner. I look like I got fatter overnight, or what seemed to be, it felt like overnight. And then I'd actually get on the scale and maybe even see the scale had gone up a pound or two.
Wow.
And so it really challenged that, oh my God, you know, do I know what I'm doing? Am I eating appropriate to what I'm training like? And, oh, should I cut? And what I do is like, no, I have to trust the process. I have to know that I've already calculated all this out. I'm in the right place. And then it would be like 2 or 3 days later, all of a sudden you'd see that come out. And what it was my body just holding on to water. And that little bit of holding on to water while you're also trying to lean out is such a mind fuck. And so it really opened my eyes from a coaching perspective of, God, how often does this happen to our people?
Oh yeah.
How often do you
abandon it because of those signals?
Yes. Right? And you know what? When you're in that position, this is from like the client's perspective, I don't care how smart your trainer is or how much you trust them. There's nothing they can say to you to make you feel different about what you see. Because I knew what I was doing, knew it was right, but would see it and it still messed with me, because I'm going like, no, I'm looking at this mirror right now and I know what I look like yesterday and I look worse today. Yet I trained, I ate the way I was supposed to, but I woke up. And so, you know, your body's ability to retain and hold water and to look a little bit different day to day can be very deceiving for even the experienced person, much less the average person who's going through this.
I like that. Yeah. So I'm so glad you said that. So basically you're going for a small deficit most of the time, and every once in a while you'll do a small surplus. But the key here is it's small. There's nothing massive in either direction. Now, along those lines, you definitely want to eat a very high protein diet. 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight, or even a little more. Yeah. Studies are pretty clear on this. When people are in a calorie deficit, but their protein intake is high, even if they don't strength train, they lose less muscle. If they strength train, they end up building more muscle. So the protein aspect is going to be very, very important. So take your body weight and say, okay, that's my goal, to hit that many grams of protein per day. And that'll make a huge difference. Of all the macronutrients, that one makes the biggest difference.
Well, this is so important, right? So that let's say I'm hitting my calorie goal in order to quote unquote build muscle, but my protein take is so low, my body might not, right?
That's right.
I mean, like, so I could literally, let's say my number is, 2,900 calories is what I need to consume a day. And I hit my 2,900, but my protein's at 30 grams or 50 grams. The likelihood that the extra weight that my body potentially holds on to or adds is not going to be,
that's right.
It's not going to be muscle, because I'm not giving it the right macronutrients in order for it to adapt and build muscle. But I am giving it a surplus of calories. So those actual additional calories may end up getting stored as body fat. Is that right?
That's it. Yeah. Muscle, your muscles are made up of amino acids. Now there's the fat and carbohydrates play a role, because it's more complex than what I'm saying. But this is pretty clear. This is one of those things with diet, because diet can be murky, but this is very clear in diet that a high protein intake in a calorie deficit is phenomenal for muscle. And since we're talking about building muscle while burning body fat, like you absolutely have to do this to really make this a reality, again, because it's so challenging.